Hello, hello, hello. It's Suhailah, and this is Grow With Me by Suhailah, the podcast, and this is episode 4. And I'm going to name this one. I'm going to title this one. It's a quote from Rumi, the poet, and it is called "The wound is where the light enters." The wound is where the light enters. Now, it was originally going to be called "What is our anxiety trying to teach us?" or something like this. It was a follow-up. I wanted to bring into balance what I talked about in episode 3 a couple of weeks ago, which was for my anxiety warriors, people who specifically suffer from anxiety and or panic attacks like I used to. So in that one, I got deep into my, the feeling of that, because it reminded me of when I did used to have anxiety and to the degree that I used to have it. So I offered tools in that one. So I wanted to use this one to balance it out, because I do believe that there is a wisdom in anxiety, and that's what I talk about here. But so the way I do these podcasts, before I decided to launch in March for spring, I had already recorded quite a few at the beginning of the year. Could have even been towards the end of last year when I started, but I believe they all started in the beginning of this year. And I had a bunch in the can before I made the commitment to actually launch this, because I had been asked to do this. And I had another podcast during COVID as well called The Femden with 2 other co-hosts. But I knew this was coming. I didn't know when or how, but I wanted to make sure that I had a few in the can before I committed to any kind of posting schedule. Because even though they come out intuitively when I feel called to record something, I have a busy life, or a full life, with other things that I'm doing, including a business that I run and clients. So I recorded the first 4 in particular, probably January, February. This one in particular, definitely February. And I hadn't listened to it since then. And today, it's May now. It's May 9th that I'm going to post this. So until I go back and put the intros on them, like I do, I've recorded them. And then when I'm about to post, I add an intro. So I hadn't listened to it. And by far, to me, it's the most powerful one. And I realized that even if you didn't have anxiety, this one was meant for just what I think the wisdom is. If you do suffer from anything like anxiety or worry, that there's wisdom in this. There's wisdom in these things, these shadow aspects that we are asked to look at that are very uncomfortable. And anxiety and the feelings and the thoughts that come with anxiety are some of those aspects. So when I just re-listened to this, when I went to add the intro, I decided to rename it to "The Wound is Where the Light Enters," because that's what it's all about. It's about reaching for the light. That's ultimately what we're doing. We are reaching for the light. And I'll leave it there. I almost wanted to call it "There's No Place to Hide." That sounds very provocative, but but the wound is where the light enters is what came to me. And I actually used that quote, although I think I said it a little wrong. I misquoted it a little bit, but you'll get it when you hear it. But that's what I'm talking about. It's the light. It's the light within us. That's what we're reaching for. That's the wisdom of anxiety or any painful experience that we are going through, or any uncomfortable experience. So that's what I've decided to title this one. I hope you enjoy it. It's by far my favorite, objectively speaking. I usually don't have too much of an opinion about them. I land them. It feels right to me when it comes out. I record it. It lands. I send it to my manager. She listens. She likes it. I post it when it's time. So these first 4 I recorded around that time. This is the last of that period of time. And I hope you enjoy it. If you do, I'd love to hear your comments wherever you might be listening to it. And that's all. Let's get into it. So what is anxiety asking from us? What is anxiety asking from us? This is on the heels of my last podcast episode, which was really tools for people who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks the way I used to, giving you just straight up tools to handle it. But I wanted to do a follow-up, because I do believe that there is a reason why we have anxiety. And I think it is calling us back to wholeness, and is asking us to face the shadows and all the places that are still unsafe, that we don't want to look at, that we can't look at inside of ourselves. It might not be literal. So, well, first of all, I just want to say I came across this woman. Her name is Cheryl Paul. Came across Cheryl Paul, Sherpaul, Paul. She's a whole body of work about the wisdom of anxiety. When I came across her, it was just blogs, and it was a blog. She would have calls. I can't remember how. We didn't really have Zoom then. Might have been Skype or just conference call she dialed into. But I came across her in a moment when I was sitting in court dealing with a legal matter, and I just did not understand the level of fear I had in my body. It was unfathomable. It was my first time feeling that level of like the kind of fear that you're sweating, you feel like you can pass out. I had never had such a visceral experience for something that was not happening at all yet. I was just sitting in court waiting, and the fear of it just had me, I couldn't think. I was sweating. I felt so nervous. I felt like I could pass out. So true to form, how I am, Suhailah, I will Google anything. I won't Google real medical stuff, but anything I'm trying to understand, I usually start with a Google search. So I'm pretty certain I probably just Googled exactly how I was feeling in that moment. What is this feeling? I probably just described it word for word. And here comes Cheryl's body of work, which at the time was a newsletter or a blog, I believe, The Wisdom of Anxiety. Since then, and I'm looking now, I just Googled, she has a book called The Wisdom of Anxiety. I knew about it as well a few years later. It's called The Wisdom of Anxiety, How Worry and Intrusive Thoughts Are Gifts to Help You Heal. How worry and intrusive thoughts are gifts to help you heal. And there's a quote here that says, we have to shift from a mindset of shame, which sees anxiety as evidence of brokenness, to a mindset of curiosity, which recognizes that anxiety is evidence of our sensitive heart, our imaginative mind, and our soul's desire to grow towards wholeness. And I loved that at the time, because at the time I didn't know anything about anxiety. I didn't even think I had anxiety. I thought I was just super worried in that moment. So I was just trying to understand my intrusive thoughts, why I was always worrying all the time, why I was always thinking of the worst outcome. I was always planning for the worst pretty much, or if things were good, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. So that's more where I was back then. It was not yet where I talked about in my last episode, where I started to really have anxiety attacks to that degree, or panic attacks. So in that book, I remember, or in her work, Cheryl's work, I remember learning that anxiety always will find a place to hang its hat, because that was my thing. It was like, I always felt like I was knocking things out of the park in my life. I was, excelling in my career. I can't remember if I was in a relationship. I think I had just left the relationship at that point. I was feeling good about my life, but I felt like I always had this constant underlying feeling of worry, no matter what was going on, good or bad. So what I learned through her work in the beginning was that anxiety will always find a place to hang its hat. Okay, this thing that you thought was really the problem, you don't have a job that you love. Okay, now you have a job that you love. Okay, and now you're worrying about this thing over here. Okay, you didn't have a relationship that you love. Now you have a relationship that you love. Okay, now you're worrying about it's going to fail. So that's what was happening to me. So when I came across that idea that anxiety and worry or intrusive thoughts will always find a place to hang its hat, it's just always looking for a place to land. So it's essentially unprocessed emotions. It's like looking for a target, right? I can say that now, but I didn't know that then. But that idea made sense to me, that concept. So cut to more recently, like I talked about in the last episode, which is more for anxiety and panic, people who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. That's what that episode was more about, just giving you straight up tools. I wanted to create this podcast directly following, because even though I was saying how horrible they feel and you just want to get over them and here are some tools, I also know that there's wisdom in them, the way Cheryl talks about in her work. And I know that now because I've experienced it. It's a call. It's a call to wholeness. It's a call to healing. It's a call to all of the places inside of yourself that you didn't even know were there. So for me, I didn't know that I had PTSD or CPTSD until just within the past 2019 was the first time, or 2018 was the first time a therapist healer told me that she thinks I have PTSD. Okay. And that was because I can't remember shit about my childhood. She was like, I've never seen anybody who has had such major things happen to them, like running away from home, and you cannot remember a single detail, right? I can only remember the broad idea, but not the actual details. So that's the first time I heard that. And then 2021, after my mother died, and I made a clear intention to focus on trauma as it relates to family trauma and family dynamics, sibling dynamics specifically, is when another healer therapist told me that there was such thing as CPTSD. So the difference between the two is PTSD is usually one traumatic event, like we see with soldiers, Army veterans, military veterans. You know, they were in traumatic, they're in war, right? So I'm not, maybe a bomb blew up near them, behind them, or just seeing everything that was there caused them to later have PTSD, where now every time they hear the sound of a firecracker, fireworks, anything that seems like the bomb, they go into that vicious cycle that is PTSD. It reminds them of that, right? It's post-traumatic stress disorder. CPTSD is complex. It's complex and it's repeated. So my entire childhood essentially is what, the events of my childhood essentially is what makes me be someone who has CPTSD. So I've never been officially diagnosed with that, but this therapist and healer gave me some exercises and put me on to somebody else's work where that's her focus, because she felt like that could help me, which it did. And that's when I started to realize, point for point for point, if there's a checklist of 15 things, I had all of them. So we don't really need other people to let us know what's going on with us. I definitely don't. I'm not a paranoid person. I am not a hypochondriac, but I am always clear and I am never wrong. Even with the doctors, if there's a physical thing, I know what's wrong before they do. And even when they say there's nothing wrong because I look normal and I look healthy, I'm like, nope, this is going on in my body. Something's the matter. Please check this, this, and this, and this. That has saved me so many times because I know what's going on with me. So even if I don't have words to it, I can describe it or I can point to it. So I came across, all of this. This has been a culmination of things to make me then be experiencing, like I did in how I described in the last episode, just really bad anxiety and having to really deal with it. My anxiety was so bad and so frequent. These little attacks, I would call them terror attacks. That's what they felt like. The invisible marker, the visible feeling of an anxiety attack can sometimes feel much worse than a physical ailment. And it's weird because oftentimes if I am dealing with something physical, I don't actually get anxiety attacks at the same time. It's weird. At the moment where you think you would be anxious because you actually are dealing with something big, a surgery that's about to happen or something else like that, I don't actually get anxiety attacks during that time. I get anxiety attacks when nothing's really going on. So that's why, for me, I know that a lot of it is just the fear of it. After a while, like I said in the last episode, once you have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, it really becomes about the fear of having one that becomes the problem. You're just so worried now that it becomes a vicious cycle and it becomes a disorder in a way. So, but all things considered, what I know that it was driving me to is to establish a sense of safety within myself. Because whether it's from childhood, when my mother left, when my stepmother was abusive to me and in our household, when I didn't have a great childhood that caused the CPTSD, which I just found out about more recently, that's what was going on. And that was not a safe environment. Whether it's me walking through the world trying to establish safety for myself, becoming a career-driven woman, wanting to make my own money, always have my own, that didn't establish a sense of safety for me. And then I was in a relationship that was actually not safe in a lot of ways, financially, mentally, emotionally. He didn't make me feel safe. And that's the time when these terror attacks, when these really bad panic attacks, every single day, anxiety attacks, and I'm separating the two. And if you had them both, panic attack is just a whole nother ball game. Thank God I've only had a couple of those. Anxiety attacks, though, are what was happening to me frequently, all the time, every day, every night. So just many attacks, or the fear of them. So I started to realize that, yeah, it's true. We can't establish safety outside of ourselves. Truly, nothing is really safe and secure in this world. Everything is temporary, everything is material, everything is going to disappear, including our physical bodies. We can establish safety within ourselves. And that's why I do so much spiritually, to start to understand that God is my source, spirit is my source, and it's not tangible. You can't sit on it. It doesn't feel like a solid thing beneath you, but it's the only sure thing. So what I believe that's happening is two things. What Cheryl said in the beginning, we have to embrace, basically what she's talking about is the shadow aspects of ourselves. The parts where she talks about shame in that quote I gave. She's talking about the shadow aspects of ourselves, the parts we don't want to look at, the parts that are too hard to look at, whether because they really are too hard to look at because they happened, like abuse in childhood and all these horrible things that can happen at the hands of others. But also the places we feel broken and ashamed because of it, like something was our fault, and then it now manifests as these physical feelings in our bodies that are anxieties as well as disease. So I'm a strong believer in the mind, body, spirit connection. They are all related to me. I do not believe that when something physical starts to happen to me, or even if something like anxiety, that was the beginning. I believe that is the result of everything that has come before. So my job for myself, I don't know how this happened. I always am trying to figure out what got me to this place, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. How did I get here? Even at the same time, not blaming myself, but sometimes we do blame ourselves. Why did I make this bad decision? How did I wind up in this situation, in this relationship, in this job? I don't like my life. I hate my life. How did I get here? It looks perfect on the outside, but I hate it inside. I hate it inside of me, So that's the part that anxiety is making us look inside of ourselves so we can integrate all of these broken pieces, like Cheryl says. I used to call it gathering courage. Every time I had a blog with this name because it meant to me, because every time I was able to look at something and bring it back in, it was giving me courage, even if it wasn't the prettiest thing to look at. I was more accepting myself, little one piece at a time, even though I didn't know that that's what I've been doing. So that's what healing is. It doesn't mean to be perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. I wish we would get that out of our mind. The only thing that could be perfect is, like, I'm looking at my couch in my living room. It's perfect, right? It's a perfect couch. The dimensions, the color, the lines on it, it was cut right. These things can be made perfect visually. There is no such thing as perfect otherwise. We are perfect. We are perfect. We are whole, and we are complete with all the broken parts of ourselves, or the parts of us that we perceive to be broken. We just got to put the pieces back together again, like a puzzle, like an actual little jigsaw puzzle. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. We're making it make sense for us. Like, my life makes perfect sense with all the pieces that other people might think have been messy or not, quote unquote, perfect, or I'm this way or I'm that way. It was perfect for me. It was the life that God gave me to work with. It's my job to figure out how to work with it. So I believe that anxiety, that feeling, is asking us to look inside and make ourselves feel safe, not just safe on the outside. And we could use the little coping mechanisms like I talked about in the last episode, even me, where the actual physical anxiety, when it was upon me, I had a friend, Kenneth, I talked about, I would call him in the middle of the night. Use whatever crutch we need to use, right? Until we can stand on our own too, but not to the expense of ourselves, where we have to sacrifice ourselves, or we're going to develop another habit because of it, right? So it's similar to, and that's why I don't have vices like drugs or alcohol, because that's just giving me another habit that I'm then going to have to recover from. I am determined to live a life where I do not give myself things that I have to continually recover from. As well, I do not want to be in the world interacting with other people where they have to recover from me, because I am so confused about who I am and how I show up, that I take it out on them. And now everyone is damaging everyone and hurting everyone and giving everyone a reason to have to recover from us. I don't want you to have to recover from me. If you worked with me, if you were my boyfriend, my husband, my partner, my child, my business partner, you're not going to have an experience with me where you have to be in therapy over me. Now, I might trigger some things in you that you may now need to be aware of, but I'm not going to do you harm. I am not going to do you harm. You are safe with me. And that's because I am making me safe with me. So when I trust myself, then I have nothing to lose. I can give it away. I can give it away. I can give an apology away. I can give it away. I can still have, even if I'm not wrong, I can say sorry, because I can give that away. I can also have strong boundaries though. So that's what anxiety is asking us to do. It is forcing us to our knees inside of ourselves. No place to hide. No place to hide. It is like being in the dark and turning on the light. There is no place to hide. But at the same time, if that light switch and that light system was not built to hold the voltage of light that's about to be switched on, what's going to happen? It's going to short circuit. It's going to start a fire. It's not going to work properly. So until we understand these dark parts of ourselves, we can't allow the light in. That is how we allow the lights in. There's a quote that says that the wound is where the light comes in. I believe that's the quote. The wound is where the light comes in. And that's what anxiety is doing as we face these aspects of ourselves, reframing them so they don't look like something we have to be scared of or scared to face or scared to feel, mostly because anxiety is because we are afraid to feel that feeling that's coming up. And we are like, no way, no way, no way, no way, Jose. And we do not want to feel it. It's hurtful, it's painful, and it does not feel good. So it's much more nuanced and complex than I'm trying to explain here. But that's what I believe is happening. That's what Cheryl's work is about. You might want to check it out, or books like it. I recommended Anxiety Josh and his work in the last episode. That's actually tools to understand how to manage it. And like Cheryl, she reframes what it's actually for. And what I believe ultimately is also happening is we are building the capacity to hold the light of God, light being information that needs to come within us. Information is stored with us. Everything comes from within. Nothing comes from without. You know how you can be having a bad day, a bad week, a bad month. Suddenly the next day you're feeling good. Nothing changed on the outside at all. We've all experienced that, right? This day I'm feeling crappy. The next day I'm not. Nothing changed on the outside except for how we're feeling on the inside. That gave us a different perception of the day. So a different experience of the day. So when I say nothing's happening on the outside, everything's happening on the inside, that's what I mean. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And this is why people who are dealing with the most horrible circumstances that if you are here in the United States, we don't have to deal with anything close, right? Genocides and things on their land in their countries that we have never had to face. There are people who are living that, and they could be the happiest people because it's how they're seeing things from the inside. So all the work is on the inside. And this is also how God speaks to us, through creativity, through imagination. I have a newsletter, Spark, and this year I'm dedicating it to rebuilding. And the issue that I'm in the middle of writing right now is about imagination and thought, how thought creates. And it's that. But we get this information from God. We get it from some source. I don't know what you want to call it. I don't believe that God is a man sitting in the sky or a man at all. I believe it's an energy, and it's everywhere all the time, but we have to have room for it. So I believe on a spiritual level, and that's an entirely different podcast and phase of my life that I'm moving into, that our body is really preparing us, our nervous system, to receive the light of God, to receive the light being information, so that we all can go forth in this world and do the world that we came here to do. So, what is your anxiety asking of you? What are the places you need to heal and make whole? Not perfect. Make whole. Make whole. Come to terms with love, accept self-love, so that you can then move forth in this world and be a light for others, a source for others, an example for others, an example of love for others, and you can be love itself.